shell. So this is not a new terrain for them, and they've done, as much as this issue and this court case is not great press for them, but I think let's not lose sight of all the good that they've done as well in country.
That was the last thing that I was going to say, was how much they've actually put into the country since they've been there.
This is West Africa Weekly, a live series brought to you by Lynx and Arvy Nahar, where we talk about oil and gas news, projects, and developments that you can sink your teeth into. Here are your hosts, Greg and Arvy.
Hey, Greg.
Hey, Arvy. How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, thank you. Pretty good. And how are you?
I'm not frozen. That's the main thing.
Good. I'm glad.
Everyone's thawed out now, I think. But it's it was a pretty rough go there for a few days. We were packed up and headed over to a couple of our friends' house there, and we felt like it was better to have more people. We take away the grid from 2 or 3 different houses. So there was like 4 families together in one house. So we just all got in one spot that was that seemed to have reliable power. And we had just all hung out there for a few days.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I've been watching things on the news. People were really suffering. I had no idea that the situation was that bad, But
depending on which news station you looked at, it made it.
Really?
It made it seem a lot worse. But it was definitely a large event, especially for a lot of the power generation plant, and it couldn't handle the load. So and there's a lot of things going on in the background with that. A lot of resignations, and as we said before, Ryan put together a pretty good piece about it. I guess it's 3 or 4 days ago. And if anyone's watching the show or knows anything about War Room Media, Ryan Ray, which we do a show here in a couple of hours with him as well. But he put out a pretty good a commentary on kind of the entire situation as a whole. Kind of breaks it down from the funding aspect, and then the budgetary aspect, and then the people that were kind of responsible for kind of the whole entire event. So he was he put together a really good piece about it. So if anybody wants to know about some of the stuff that took place with all of that event, then he's got some stuff out there for it. So, but let's talk about you. Let's talk about you. What you've been doing, Arvy. Where are you at right now?
So to give you an indication, I'm still in West Africa. I'm currently in Nigeria. This is my 4th week, so going strong. No issues so far. Yeah, it's just, in fact, today the weather's really started to heat up a little bit. I can feel the difference already. So it's really quite intense and quite hot. But luckily, the offices and obviously our apartments, hotels, they all have great, fully equipped with AC equipment, so we're okay. But you can kind of, when you feel the temperature change, it's started to get really pretty hot here. But apart from that, all is well. Really quite enjoying my time in Nigeria.
You take a shower and you come out and your hair comes out before you come out. It's just that's the way the heat is, isn't it? But when it's been 2 weeks since we did our last we last spoke. So been a few things change in the market. Been a lot of things happen actually in the market. Your prediction of 65 was basically spot on. You were all over it with that one.
I was definitely all over it. But I think it was really interesting because I sent you a screenshot and I was like, "Look, Greg, I think my predictions were right."
So when you sent me the screenshot, I was like, "Oh, she got me there on that one." But that's good.
Yeah,
that's good. I like that. At least some of the sentiment and some of the things that's happening in the market right now actually align with events that are taking place. So you can actually see, the supply and the demand starting to work properly again. And so there are some better indicators there that the market maybe looking a bit more healthy, but I mean, it's easier to, I say easier, it's never easier to predict or easier to kind of give an outlook or a forecast, but it seems to be better now doing a forecast or kind of looking forward than it was, say, September and October of last year.
Yeah, I agree. And like you stated, Greg, there is just so much change happening. I mean, it seems to be, I used to look forward to the weekly catch up, but the truth is market changes every day. And there's definitely so much activity going on, especially here right now. So, yeah, it's good to finally catch up with you anyway.
So let's get our rundown up there. All right, we're going to talk a bit about the oil prices. We'll jump into DRC and their new tender, some of the Nigerian court freeze on shell accounts, Senegal's president's calling for reform, and Mozambique calling out for some local content, which, Arvy, that's your specialty. So we'll cover a bit of that in the last part of the show. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into this first bit of it here with the oil prices. We did talk a little bit about it, but it's the Brent is this morning 66.58, and the WTI 62.73. So I didn't look at the consumables report this morning. I should have had, because Ryan's going to ask me about it. I'm going to fail that test, so I'm going to have to jump whenever I get off with you. I'm going to have to go look at the consumables report. But I can imagine that a lot of the drivers are just basically supply and demand at the moment. I hadn't really looked that deep into it right here before we chatted, but it seems to be a consistent ramp, from looks like about the beginning of November, working its way up. We've had a few dips there, but like I said, it's better than what it was in October and September. That's for sure.
Sure. And there's already talks here. I mean, following the Nigerian press very closely, there's already talks here that oil should reach about $100 by the end of the year or this year. So
that's still amazing. I've heard it a few times as well, Arvy, and I'm just it's still amazing for me to hear, because I'm worried that we'll get into another one of those shock events.
Yeah, agreed.
And I'm hoping that everybody plays nice together and one doesn't try to outproduce the other. So yeah, it's interesting. So we'll see.
Definitely.
So the first topic we got here, Arvy, is the DRC announcing their first tender since 2015. So they'll offer up 10 new onshore blocks for exploration here. Looks like before the end of 2021. I haven't gotten a date for that yet, although I've got it marked down to keep watching on it. But this announcement was made prior to this, which happened a few days after they announced that those blocks being up for exploration the end of this year. But this tragic event with the Italian ambassador to the DRC, Mr. Luca Anatosia. So so kind of with the latest kind of news of what happened here with the ambassador, being killed after a UN convoy was attacked in eastern DRC. How do you kind of see that as kind of blowing back on any kind of future work in the country? It's always, I know the answer to this question, but I need to ask it because I know that there's a lot of people out there don't kind of know what we do. So it's better to, to have a bit of context about it,
Sure. I think it's obviously very sad news with the death of the ambassador and the issues in country. But I think any issues related to kind of instability, whether it be political warfare, especially in DRC. DRC is not new to political instability,
no.
And everybody that works in that region, the corporations, the IOCs, the local people as well, they're fully aware that it kind of, to be honest with you, last year was relatively quiet in DRC.
It was.
And
yep, you're right.
all of a sudden, there seems to be, pockets of issues happening in country. And I think that it would definitely is bound to have a ricochet effect on new ventures, I think, coming in country. But saying that, I was doing a bit of research online, and the government have already endorsed an exhibition to be held this year in September for the bid rounds. So there's a number of companies that have already registered, are prepared to sponsor this big event. So there is a huge drive for tenders and new bids. So I think in answer to your question, Greg, it's definitely going to have an issue for new business, I think, especially. However, saying that, I think that the companies that do work in that region are fully aware of just how kind of volatile the region really is with instability.
And I mean, of course, we know that all up and down the west coast of Africa, Italy does a lot of work. So, your ENIs, your Totals, Total's French, but I mean, a lot of their employees are from Italy. So
Correct.
A lot of their, expats are, coming from Italy. So my, my heart goes out to Italy, the country, as well as
Sure.
Mr. Lucas' family. I'm sure it was an event that was, that it'll take a long time to get over, but yeah. So I hear what you're saying, but we always look at these. I say we always look at this from a kind of a let's get it done perspective when we go in the country. Kind of, when we get off the plane, we're thinking what's on the list. What do we got to do? What do we got to take care of? And sometimes this is a tragic reminder that you're not at home. Is what this is.
Yeah.
This is a reminder that you're in someone else's country, someone else's backyard. So you need to be, 100% aware where you're at the entire time. So, absolutely,
and that's actually a good way of looking at it, Greg. That the fact that you're not at home, you are in somebody's backyard, and that's a good way of looking at it, actually. And sometimes we get, even for myself, I mean, I've been here in Nigeria,
a lot of complacency sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel relatively safe. I'm here, one has a driver, so you just get on with business. But sometimes you lose sight of the fact that you don't really know who's watching you or who's looking at you from afar.
Exactly.
So
exactly. Yeah. I mean, I spent some time in Abidjan, of course, the Ivory Coast, but I felt relatively safe there, and I mean, but you could go in and out of different zones, and you could quickly be made to feel unsafe by going into
Correct.
A few of these different zones. So it's just a reminder, when you're in and out of these countries, to make sure you stay on top of your business.
Sure.
Also, agreed. To have good liaisons too. So
yeah,
working with a good helps. Agent. Yeah, exactly. That's the main thing. So, all right, moving on here, we'll talk a little bit about something that's probably pretty close to you right now. But the federal court in Lagos has issued an injunction barring Royal Dutch Shell's Nigerian subsidiaries from withdrawing money at 20 local banks until it ring fences potential damages in a lawsuit brought against the oil major by Ateo Eastern EP. So looks like Ateo is seeking $4 billion. I think I read that $4 billion in compensation over now deliberate improper metering of the exports, and of course, those being undercounted. But looks like Shell is countered with it being factually incorrect. But so the other thing, Arvy, was this came kind of behind this other issue with the Nigerian farmers and some of the oil spill and pollution. So do you think that just with the their accounts being frozen after this thing with the Nigerian farmers, was this just another run at Shell after they kind of lost that recent court case in the Netherlands, or kind of what's your take on it there?
I think my take on it is the fact that, this case in particular and the issues with Shell have been going on for years.
Sure.
Talking about 5 years plus.
And there's also one of the things that I didn't even bring up either. There's like another, they're like countersuing from something happened in the 70s too. The Shell was going back, I'm trying not to laugh and find it comical, but I think that it's just like a I'm going to do, it's your turn today to sue me. And
that's right. Sue you tomorrow, Yeah. But since we're at it, I want to know what you did 30 years ago as well.
Exactly.
But I think we have to look at things on a practical level and operational level, and it is a lot about accountability for an international oil company. But again, having been to that region quite recently, understanding the marsh terrain, understanding kind of the local demographics of the place, it's a real hardship location.
Sure.
So for the farmers, it's, and you can't say it's not happened. It's definitely happened. There's some leakages. There's a lot of pollution going on. But the truth of the matter is that there are, as you rightfully know, Greg, there are so many tie-ins, to this kind of work. And that it starts off with the IOC, but the time you get to the contractor, the subcontractor, the subcontractor, who's responsible for what. So there's a lot of kind of tie-ins from a contractual perspective and damages you've got to consider. So, yes, the IOCs, an international oil company being Shell, everybody seems to feel that, yes, you're liable and all the rest of it. Agreed, I understood that. But one has to spend a bit of time to understand that it's not just Shell as an entity operating here. There are many different companies, many different contractors and subcontractors involved. So it's about the flow down of responsibility as well, and kind of corporate governance. So I think they're going to probably have a bit of a hard time here, I think. But they've been here for years, in West Africa, Shell. So this is not a new terrain for them, and they've done as much as this issue and this court case is not great press for them, but I think let's not lose sight of all the good that they've done as well in country.
That was the last thing that I was going to say, was how much they've actually put into the country since they've been there. And you can probably look for this to be settled in probably like 40 years or something, maybe. So
exactly, yeah.
But it is keeping people busy. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's keeping the lawyers earning big money. That's what it's done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Senegal's president calling for some oil and gas reform. Senegal's president Macky Sall has called for a transformation of organization and management, execution, and evaluational processes within the kind of their domestic oil and gas sector. So, as the country prepares to enter oil and gas operations for 2023. So, one of the things that I found curious whenever I was kind of going back looking through some of this was the original petroleum code in Senegal was put into place in like April 1986, right? So then there was a revision to the code in 1998. So you had a pretty good size gap there in time. Now they're calling kind of for another reform. But do you think this has kind of anything to do with some of potentially the leadership change that's happened with Senegal? I mean, he's appointed H.E. Gladima here to the Office of Petroleum and Energy back in November. So prior to this, he let go of Mr. Thurnosau back in May 2017. So again, another gap in time there where there wasn't anyone kind of sitting in that kind of seat. So do you think with the since the seat kind of sat empty there for about 3 years, that this was kind of a move now that the seat has been filled again?
I think I absolutely do think so, Greg. And the reason why I say that is that neighboring countries, when anybody is put into a position of power and great power like this, they always look at, what's happening with the neighboring companies and see if they can follow suit. The issue that we've got right now, not really an issue, is the fact that the AFTA agreement is well on its way of implementation. So a lot of African countries are looking at, the internal policies, looking at internal framework agreements, and actually putting in place proper procedures and governance procedures. And I think that if this was bound to happen because of, I mean, talking from a European perspective, I know that at the moment, all investment companies are looking at Africa. Every time you speak to an equity firm, it's the final frontier. We want to get to Africa. We want to get to Africa. So I think these provisions that, like Senegal, have put in place will really harness and kind of attract that kind of investment, because it's all about, inward investment, looking at corporate structures, looking at stability in country, and also, legal structures. So I think, it's happened at the right time, is what I'm trying to say, because there is so much activity, not just for the oil and gas sector for Senegal, but also for infrastructure and development. So I think it's happened at a good time, Greg, if you want to, in my honest opinion.
No, I agree. I think I'm actually was quite surprised when I was reading through some of this that the seat said empty for 3 years. I mean, it was, but during that 3 years, there was still ongoing work happening in Senegal. So I can imagine that the management of resources, once things were starting to come to, whether it was a start or middle of the project, that it was probably getting a bit demanding to try to manage all of that within inside of someone else's responsibility. So he was like, okay, I've got to find somebody else that can sort this out for me.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah. But from what I understand, that up until the point where Mr. Thurno was let go, they were kind of happy with what he was doing. I mean, he sits on the board of many different places, and as well as kind of established a couple of large food banks and some other things. So I don't know what happened with the relationship there, and then why it said empty for 3 years. I don't know. Maybe it was a non-compete there. What do you think?
Possibly. Who knows?
It's different. It's different. You never know. You never know what happens. So, but I'm glad they got the spot sorted out, and it looks like they're headed toward a better future anyway.
Sure.
What the reform looks like, who knows? But I mean, I think everybody's kind of going through a reform.
Yeah,
you're not cool if you're not going through a reform. So.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
All right, our last one here. We'll talk about Mozambique calling out for increase in local content. So they put out a piece, I guess it was a couple of days back, but as we know, there's been some recent issues in Mozambique recently, but I mean, it's not, they're managing it, but they issued a statement. So that wouldn't have been yesterday, it would have been the day before, about increase in local content for kind of up and coming projects. One of the primary challenges they focused on was that's kind of hindering the realization of local content policies, but it's a lack of capacity. Despite enforcement of policies that promote inclusivity of and increased participation by the local workforce, the lack of a highly skilled workforce, characteristics of industries such as mining, drilling, continue to reduce in compliance. So therefore, the transfer of skills, knowledge, and technology from foreign entities to local counterparts has emerged as a key priority. And that's kind of like how it always is. So in fact, the kind of proliferation of the multi-sector developments in Mozambique presents unique opportunities for international companies to utilize projects as an avenue for capacity building. So Arvy, can you kind of go into any detail there that's kind of required for the skill transfer, knowledge and technology from foreign entities to local counterparts, since they say that is their biggest focal point?
Sure. And I think, Greg, what's really quite interesting is the fact that this time last year, I was actually assigned to Area 4 in Mozambique for the LNG feed work. Now, what's interesting is that, the governance, the legal framework for the local content policy is relatively new for Mozambique. And even though local governments and local political agenda is actually to enforce IOCs to implement a structure, to flow down the local content requirements, the skills, transfer of skills, etc., etc. But I think people are forgetting the fact that this is going to take some time.
Absolutely.
This is not going to happen within 12 months or 18 months. You can't expect somebody. I mean, let's just talk about, one of the operational skills. So let's talk about drilling engineering. Okay. So you have a student that goes into some sort of school, goes into qualify, goes to university, and then perhaps decides that, what IOCs are currently doing at the moment, which is great, is that they have the kind of standard graduate scheme that applies, but they also have kind of like an encouragement of entrepreneurs as well. So they have like an apprentice scheme as well. And these things take time. So yeah, it's going to take, I think the minimum time is about 3 to 5 years to actually see the local skill sets being flowed down into these key sectors. But saying that, I think I'm also encouraged to see how international companies have also put this at the top of their agenda, and they're happy to work with local organizations, local kind of colleges and universities to really understand, okay, what is the skills gap here? Are we looking at technical stuff? Are we looking at commercial people? What is it here? And I think it's going to take some time, and I think we just need to be a bit patient with what's going on, especially in Mozambique, because the level of work for the LNG and the gas sector in that part of Africa, it's huge. It's massive.
So just one quick question here before I forget, because you're bringing a lot there. Which is fine, but when we start to look at education, not necessarily education, but skills gaps, is that something that we kind of look up front? Before we start putting or trying to implement a local content policy, or does it kind of just come along does it kind of just flow along? Is it something that do you identify that gap up front, is what I'm saying?
I think that what ends up happening is it's not something that's really discussed up front.
Sure.
Usually because project planning and endorsements of projects usually happen.
You actually don't know what you got. It's kind of like a box of M&Ms. You don't know.
Exactly.
You may find somebody that's more talented and that is more receptive to the information and has a kind of a lesser amount of information on the paper than the other person, and then all of a sudden it flips and the other person picks up. Yeah, so there's that always. Yeah. It always happens.
Exactly. And I think that you got to look at like a simultaneous workflow here, because on one hand you've got the government implementing this legislation, but how do the government know how many engineers are required, what kind of technicians are required, and the grading levels? It's very particular. You've got to go into each project plan separately and actually do what we call like a skills matching test. And
sure.
Sometimes it can take some time. I think, as I said before, one has to be very patient, because I don't think, the implementation phase and the drafting of the local content for Mozambique, I'm not too sure that people actually thought that, wow, it's actually going to be quite an intense piece of legislation that's, going to be a prerequisite for every company coming into the country.
I think also there's also a bit of they build in some room to make some mistakes. So, I mean, when you're talking like a 5, 6, 7, 8 year project, you're talking, by year 5, they want this amount of percentage and this amount of positions to be local content. So there is for most places I've been anyway, there is where you ramp up that percentage of local content. And this entire, time the project's ongoing, you haven't stopped training people. You're still training people, moving people through that development process. And then by the time, year 3 or 4 comes around, they're ready to assume a lot of new roles. And they've already kind of been, what we call shadow positions. Yes. For multiple years before they actually assume the role. And so just for our listeners that's out there, that, it's not like they just hand everything over and pack up the suitcase and head out, so it's not like that. There's a lot of time invested. In fact, there's a lot of expats that make their career out of just teaching people in different countries how to be able to hand over these larger operations and work through that transition. So they've been doing it for multiple years.
Sure, I agree. But then saying that, I think we just, for me, I've kind of, like you've stated, it's always works in progress, and there's always room and provision for further development, even within the legislation. So I think that we're just going to have to give it time and be patient to see how it rolls out, because evidently there's a lot more tenders coming up. There's a lot more proposals for Mozambique. So I
can promise you that by year 2 or 3, if you haven't, gotten somewhere through your local content policy, you will get a speeding ticket.
Absolutely, definitely.
I can tell you that 150% you will get a speeding ticket.
You'll get a speeding ticket, and you'll get a really big fine and some points on your license, Greg.
Yeah, that is the fine part was where I was headed. So
okay, good.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end here. Let's see if we've got any questions. Like we're getting some love there from Nell Tamman from looks like he's in Lagos as well.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. Let's see. We don't. I don't see any questions today. We got some people coming in from the UAE and Pakistan. Sorry, we're just getting ready to close up here. Maybe we'll catch you guys a little bit earlier and ladies next time. But
sure.
Yeah. So, Arvy, it's been another wonderful show. It's always great catching up with you.
Absolutely, Greg. Absolutely. So, I guess I'll be catching up with you next week then. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll chat between now and then. I will be headed back out of the U.S. for another few weeks, so we'll see how the timing and everything works. But it was great to at least catch up for this one after 2 weeks. I said, do we talk about when you're not on for 2 weeks? Do you talk about everything that happened, like the 2 weeks that you missed, or just the week before you talk? Like it was, it's really like new stuff from 3 weeks ago, is it not? So, I mean,
exactly.
It was like that's not really interesting anymore. So we have to figure out something else to talk about.
I hear you, but you see, the conversations could go on for about an hour, so it's what it is.
Oh no, I mean we could definitely find a lot more to talk about, but at the end of the day, you're a very busy person, and we need to let you get back to work. And I appreciate your time this week. And all right, everybody, that's been another show with me and Arvy, and that's she takes care of a lot of business in West Africa. So if you get into any contract issues, you can check out her website right there. It's at the very top of the screen. And and this is and I'm Greg from Lynx, obviously, but we try to do one of these at least every week. It's looking like every 3 weeks now, but we'll try to be better. So
thank you.
All right. Thank you for coming on, Arvy, and have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, you too, Greg. See you soon. Right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been watching West Africa Weekly, a live series brought to you by Lynx and Arvy Nahar. Your hosts have been Greg and Arvy. For sponsorship opportunities, send us an email at info@riglynx.com. Tune in next Thursday at 8 a.m. CST for another live episode.